All right, hello and welcome to Navigating SU Tips and Strategies for Your Academic Success. Before we go into the content, we should probably tell y'all who we are. My name is Erin Monahan. I use she, her pronouns. I am Assistant Director of Learning Assistance Programs. I work primarily on the tutoring program, and I am also an SU alum. I graduated in 2018.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Jada Mendoza. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a learning specialist here at Learning Assistance Programs, mainly working on the workshop side of things. So we offer workshops. We'll talk more about that later on. But I am also a recent SU alum, class of 2021. So yeah, nice to be here with y'all. So before we formally begin our presentation, we wanted to do an activity on metacognition. So something that you probably see in this image here, right, is you probably have a lot of things going on in your head as you transition to Seattle U in the fall, especially if you're a first-time college student. And so we really want this activity to not only be low stakes, but also something that will get you to think about your thinking, which is the definition of metacognition. And so the instructions for this activity, given that we are doing this via recording, is you will see a list of words, and we will ask you to pause for 30 seconds. And we'll probably have to go back to the previous slide anyway, so that you don't cheat. But basically, we want you to count the number of vowels in this list of words. And then afterwards, after that 30 seconds are up, just try to recount how many words you remember as much as possible based off of this strategy. And so with that, we will kick it to the list of words. Just gonna do a little 30-second timer. Maybe you're already doing it yourself. If you are, thank you. Okay, that was about 30 seconds. So yeah, just recount how many vowels you saw in that list of words. And also, what words do you remember from that list? Now let's show the list of words again and see if you can find a pattern with all of these various words. I'm just going to give a couple of moments for reflection. If you need more time, continue to pause here and there, but really want us to draw out what are the patterns? What are the patterns in this list? Cool. Hopefully that gave a little bit more time in navigating the pattern shown here. It is basically a list of numbers in ascending order. So $1 is 1. There's 2 dice typically that you are, if you roll dice, there's 2, right? And so on. And so with this pattern established, we want to do that activity again. And so this time, pause it and try to remember this pattern and memorize as many words as possible. And we will go to the previous slide. So hopefully you took 30 seconds to kind of pause, memorize. And now here on this slide, try to name out all the words that you remember from that list. With this strategy, it should be a lot easier instead of looking at the specific vowels of each word, right? Because you have a sense of the bigger picture. And so typically in a live workshop setting, we would be asking you, the participant, how is this an analogy of learning in the classroom, right? And so maybe we can go to the last metacognition slide to talk a little bit more about this. But essentially, the way that we are drawing this example to the classroom is that sometimes, there are ways wherein we hear one thing in the classroom, but actually we need to take a step back to get an overall picture in terms of our studying, right? When we think of our classes from our first year of college to then our maybe potential like third year in college, you'll still need that background information from that first year, right? And another analogy that you can think of is learning a language. You need to have a grasp of the overall concepts versus just learning disparate words, right? Because that won't let you communicate. And so we really want to draw those parallels in this activity. And in terms of metacognition, this cycle, right? Thinking about your thinking. So we really are looking at the task at hand, evaluating the strengths and weaknesses that we have, and use that to plan our approach and really reflect and sharpen it further and further. So yeah, I hope that was a fun little activity in this recording. I will now pass it off to Erin.
Thanks for leading that, Jada. I'm going to talk a little bit about what their transition to life at Seattle U might look like for you. So we have a couple questions on the screen right now. How will college be different from high school? And how will Seattle U be different from your previous higher ed institution? And if you're not coming from high school or higher ed, you're coming from a different kind of a learning environment, please apply that to whatever situation you're in. And so normally we would ask people in the chat to put in their answers. So this is a good time for you. You can pause this if you're watching this and think about what your answers to this are. And now we're going to go into some of those that we came up with. So the first one here is independence and student responsibility. So you might be living on your own now, you might be commuting, you might be responsible for getting yourself to campus on time, for classes, for any extracurriculars or jobs, and also managing your time with anything else you're involved with the homework you have to do, whatever support resources you want to reach out to. So a lot more independence, as well as just like responsibility for things you might not have been responsible at home. So maybe you are making your meals now, and maybe you didn't make all your meals at home or something like that. Then the academic environment will be different than high school different from your previous institutions. Professors might have higher expectations than your previous instructors, or just different expectations, and those might look different. Your relationship with your professors may look different as well than your relationships with previous instructors. You might need to make more of an effort to go to office hours after class, for example, because maybe, they only have an hour and a half long lecture, and so they have to jam pack information in there, so there's not time for questions. So you might have to go reach out for extra support or contact them via email or however they like to be contacted. You will also have access to different resources and support at Seattle U. We'll be discussing what some of these resources are in a few slides, but we very much recommend that you take advantage of them and learn about what there is to offer. But of course, with so many new resources, there's a bit of a learning curve with the first few months of figuring out what there is, how to access it. So just being gentle with yourself as you learn all of that. And then your living arrangements. This is especially true if you're living on campus. You might have a roommate for the first time, or maybe you've shared a room before, but it's only with siblings or friends. So this might be really different for you. And if you're commuting, your living arrangements, maybe those will stay the same, but you'll have to factor in time for the commute or what that looks like. So lots of different changes going on. And to manage these changes and get through them, you'll definitely need to reach out for support. So I'm going to hand it back to Jada to talk a little bit about how we balance all of our time.
Yes, thank you so much. So as you can see here, we have the scales, right? So one may have more weight than the other. And so you're really trying to get a balance of the weight between challenges and support. Transitioning to college means a lot of these changes. There may be many new things you want to take on, things that maybe you didn't have access to in your hometown or whatever situation you're coming from. But an important aspect of ensuring your success is to find that healthy balance in the way that you divide your time, right? Something that goes hand in hand with the independence piece that we saw in the previous slide is remembering that now, we're in college, meaning to say we are now the main person in the driver's seat in our life, right? Maybe there were times where someone else was trying to dictate where you should go, right? Or the choices that you would make. But even small things as, am I getting up for lecture today? That is a decision that is completely on your own onus, right? And maybe that wasn't really an option before because of maybe familial pressures or, but just really wanting to emphasize that you are now the driver, which is very scary and exciting at the same time. So in the next slide, we have a few images that maybe symbolize things that you are interested in partaking in while you're in college. Typically we would ask you to annotate on the screen to show and get a feel of others in the room too, of what they're interested in partaking. But basically, Seattle is a very great location. There are many outdoor activities that are accessible to you if you're a hiking, camping type person. But since we're also in the city, there's so many things to explore, right? Something that I really appreciated as an SU student was we had a really great location. Things were so accessible to us. We could just walk everywhere or take the bus, and it won't take forever to get from place to place. So, take advantage of those things while you are at Seattle U. And don't be afraid to branch out and try new things, because that really is a really great point of being in college, right? Is welcoming said changes. So I will pass it off to Erin for the next one.
Thank you. I very much agree that Seattle Youth is one of the best spots in Seattle to be. And so we reached out to some of our current student employees who are mostly tutors or office assistants, and these are usually second year or onward students. And we asked them for some advice that they'd give to students that they wish someone had told them before their first year at Seattle U. So I'm going to read these quotes and then we'll chat about them a little bit. So this first one that was sent in is active learning over passive learning all the way. You don't need to study 24/7 to do well. Work smarter, not harder. So active learning means like taking a more active role in your learning, which feels pretty straightforward. But a lot of people don't really know what that looks like in action. And so for example, if let's say a professor records their lectures, being an active learner doesn't mean just sitting there and watching the lecture and maybe taking a few notes. It means watching that lecture, maybe highlighting the parts where you didn't really understand the concept. Maybe, around 15 minutes, they were explaining something you didn't get, making notes about that, looking that concept up, maybe reaching out to your professor to learn more about it. it's not necessarily about the hours that you spend studying. So it's not about reading a textbook for 3 hours. It's about maybe reading certain parts of that textbook for 1 hour and going really in depth on the areas that you are not as strong or confident in. So it's about that quality of your time studying and not the quantity. So our second quote at the bottom there, delete those distractors from your phone when you need to. I delete Instagram and YouTube during exam week to prevent doom scrolling. And this is just like such a great suggestion from the student. She said that she tends to do this right before exams and realized it after the first year of like just seeing her screen time go up a ton right before exam week. So she started deleting those apps right before in her second year, and it made a really big difference. And I think that's just such a great idea. I know a lot of folks, technology is a big distractor for a lot of folks and a big way that we procrastinate. And so if you're able to, it's a great challenge to try and delete those apps from your phone. And then our third quote here, eat well, rest well, and move well. I made a huge effort to sleep well during exam season, and this helped minimize my feelings of burnout. This is super important. I mean, you're in college, you're not, I mean, you're a student, but you're not in college just to go to class. Like you're also there to participate in community and have people with you in this big transition period of your life. And so it's important for you to learn how to care for yourself if that's something maybe you weren't used to doing on your own beforehand, and you're going to be exposed to a lot of different environments. And so getting that rest and eating well and moving, however that looks for you, will really help you minimize burnout, help your immune system, just make your time a lot better and improve, like allow you to show up more presently to your academic life, also your personal life, your any clubs you're involved with, your job, etc. Okay, and now we have a few to-do items on the screen to ensure your success in college. These are just some fun little tips that you can try out. And take note if any of these sound like something you really want to do, maybe write it down or just try to remember it. We had folks put little stamps on the screen, but I know you all can't do that from the ether. But pretend in your mind to put a stamp next to the ones that you're interested in. So the first one is to pay attention to challenges and resources for each class. So this means proactively reading your syllabus, checking Canvas, asking about resources for support for your particular class. The next is to adopt a growth mindset. So if you're not familiar with what a growth mindset means, this is the mindset that you can have going into challenges or tasks that everyone can grow through application and experience. And I always think of the saying, like, it's more about the journey than the destination. I like to go hiking and I tend to be very destination focused and miserable on the journey, even though the journey is the part that's like actually helping me grow and helping me be able to take on more challenging hikes. So that is kind of a good mindset to have, you know, if you don't, maybe you don't get 100% on your first exam, but you learned a lot while studying about your habits and about what you need to do. And then you can take that information and use that to do better on the next exam. And then that third one, the purple one, getting to know your professors. So this can be really helpful for you in your courses. I know you're all coming from different backgrounds, might have had different experiences with instructors or teachers. So however works best for you to get to know a professor. So that can be going to office hours, sticking around after class for a few minutes if they have time, like establishing a relationship with them during class and asking questions in class, whatever that looks like for you and whatever you're comfortable with. And then finding a way to keep track of class expectations and deadlines. So this can be a planner, an app. I've heard really good things about Notion lately, an app. So I think a lot of folks are starting to use that one, using Canvas, using your calendar on Outlook. And we do provide lots of resources, LAP does, to help with time management. Our tutors are trained in This is for time management. So if you get a tutor, they should be able to help you with some tips for that. And then we also offer individual consultations with LAP staff like myself and Jada and a few other of our colleagues who can help you work through your own time management or any kind of academic coaching. And here are a few more of those tips. So the first one, connecting with classmates. So there's huge benefits of working or studying with someone else. I've seen a lot of research about body doubling, which is the idea of doing a task just with someone else also doing a task at the same time. You don't even have to be doing the same task. And that's been shown to be really helpful for folks with ADHD. So that can be particularly useful if you're someone who has ADHD or know someone who does. And then learn to navigate demands on your time for academics, social life, self-care, and other roles. I feel like we've chatted a little bit about the importance of just like making sure you're tending to all of your needs and all the different areas of your life. Can be helpful to talk to maybe like older students who've been there before, a supervisor at your job, if you work somewhere, to see how students balance working and being a student. And then finding study groups and tutoring. So here at LAP, we offer free tutoring for students and free study groups in various subjects, so science, math, languages, and nursing. We don't offer tutoring in like English or history or a lot of the liberal arts subjects because those are often taught so different professor to professor. But the Writing Center and the research services at the library are super helpful with those kind of subjects. And then lastly, take advantage of other campus resources. In like 2 slides, we're going to talk about what some of those are, and just they're there for you for a reason, and they're really great and helpful.
Yes, so academic honesty and integrity. Like many other institutions, Seattle U is committed to the principle that academic honesty and integrity are essential values in the educational process. So be sure to familiarize yourself with academic integrity policy that is found on the SU website. I believe that you all should also have access to an online tutorial on either in your accounts through orientation, but please make sure that you familiarize yourself with this so that you are not, say you're pressed for time for an assignment and you ask for help, but then actually that help turns into accidentally copying someone's work. That can be very risky. I personally have had friends who have done similar, and it did bear on them as an SU student, and it is not worth the risk. So, we are not dismissing that it does in fact happen. We are just letting you know, familiarize yourself now and not get into the troubles of quote unquote being caught or just it is not fun. So please do the online tutorial if you have not already, and be familiar with the policy itself. And you can always refer back to it. It should always be accessible to you as a student. So yeah. Beyond honesty and integrity, on the other side, right, we also have support resources for you as students. And so before going into these various details, I did want to have a little spiel on using resources as students. It's fairly normal to use campus resources. They are there for you. And they are not only there for you when you are struggling. So I know for myself, when I was a student, I definitely was very hard-headed, and I was like, oh yeah, I can figure this out on my own. You don't have to figure it out on your own, right? Just because you are the main driver now of your life, It does not mean you have to be in that car by yourself, right? It's okay to get lost sometimes. And to find your way back, it's okay. It's okay to ask for help, right? And get directions. And so we really encourage students to proactively access resources instead of being reactive, meaning to say only reaching out when you think that you need it, right? There are a plethora of resources found on campus. So many that I didn't even realize as a student at SU that I wish I had known when I was first a student. So some of these are academic support offices, such as the Library Research Services, if you need help with knowing the right sources or just research in general. The Math Lab, which is drop-in tutoring for various math courses. The Media Production Center and the Biladu Makerspace. The Production Center is found in the library, while the Makerspace is found in the Senegal building. Both are great ways to explore media. And then the Writing Center, they are headed by the English department and also have a set of student employees that are able to help you with your writing process at any point of that writing process. So a lot of UCourse, for example, have essays, and sometimes essays are not easy to start. They can help with that. And they also have offline, like asynchronous appointments as well, I believe. You just have to hop into their website, get an appointment, and you're able to drop in your file for people to proofread, for example. But that is just one way of using the Writing Center. They're really great. We're right next to each other in the library, so they're very easy to find. Learning assistance program. So us, me and Erin, are part of LAP. And so these other sub-bullet points that you see are things that we've briefly mentioned throughout this presentation. So Erin had talked about the tutoring and facilitated study groups. It is also a nationally certified program through the College Reading and Learning Association, meaning our tutors have to have specific types of training and hours of training to be able to meet said standard. And then we also offer one-on-one appointments or individual consultation appointments. So say you want to improve on your time management or your note-taking skills or other learning strategies. You can see either me or Erin or other colleagues of ours to have these appointments, and we'll work with you on a one-on-one basis. Yeah, and then we also offer workshops quarter to quarter on various learning strategies, and have many online resources that you can find on our website, such as handouts, online workshops, interactive websites, to really deepen your learning. So please feel free to access those. Other things that are not mentioned on this slide particularly is campus ministry for spiritual foundation. I know a lot of folks who are not able to get access to counseling and psychological services also tend to go to folks from campus ministry for just overall holistic support if needing to talk to someone. They're very kind in there and very inclusive. So do not be shy. Another known support service on campus is CAPS, or Counseling and Psychological Services. So if you have emotional adjustments or mental health needs, they are confidential and free. I believe you get 10 sessions a quarter or a year, but they are a really great resource, as well as Timely Care for other mental health needs, which is an app that is available to students to download. I believe you just need to sign up through your SU account to gain access to it, and you will basically have a mental health professional at your fingertips via the app, as well as other mental health resources on the app as well that you can use. And then there's the Office of Multicultural Affairs, or OMA, who hosts a variety of programs and opportunities to have students connect with one another, learning outside of the classroom. They're very, very great. I really enjoyed them as a student, and they're very, very kind. Many folks are very kind, actually. So yeah, there's also the International Student Center, the Red Hawk Resource Hub Desk, for info gathering, connecting with others, the Outreach Center if you are a first generation student or a veteran. They are found in the first floor of the Student Center, tucked in the, like if you enter and then there's like a little corner, you will find them there. And yeah, there are so many resources on campus. We clearly do not have the time to elaborate on all of them in this short presentation. So feel free to explore them as you get the chance to throughout your college career or your first year of college specifically. So yeah, I will pass it off to Erin for this next portion.
Thank you. So our last little activity is to look at this scenario and think a little bit about what sorts of resources this student could reach out to. So I will read this aloud, and then if you all need some time after I read it aloud, you can pause it to read through again and think about what some resources they could reach out to are. So Morgan is a student who found that they were spending almost all their time studying. In the first few weeks of the quarter, they took detailed notes, but soon fell behind in the reading and gave up. They noticed that they read slower than most of their peers. They lost interest in lectures. They found themselves getting distracted, so they started occasionally skipping class. Considered changing their major from pre-med because of a D on their first chemistry exam, but they don't know who to talk to about this. So now's the time if you all are able to pause it and think about maybe what some resources they could reach out to, what you would do in their situation. And so some that come to the top of my mind, meeting with a learning specialist at LAP could be really helpful to talk about what some of their study habits are. They could also reach out to disability services on campus to see if perhaps they have a learning disability, if that's something that they are suspecting. They could start going to some study spaces to work with other students, and the idea of body doubling. As well as this was to emphasize, like, this was their first exam, and often that first exam is getting to know the professor's style, and they can tailor their study for the next exam based on how this one went. They can also get a tutor if it's a course that we offer tutoring for. They can talk to their professor or their advisor, and they can, of course, schedule an individual consultation with one of us. And I'm sure that many of you might have even thought of some other ways that they could maybe adjust their study habits or what resources they're reaching out to. There's so many different ways to interpret this scenario. And yeah, thank you all for taking some time to think about that and reflect on it. Cool. And then for this last one, I'll pass it back to Jada real quick, and then we will tell y'all how to get in contact with us.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so this is the last part of our presentation. Just really wanting us to take a couple of moments, we really did send a lot of information your way. But here are some questions to think about for the remainder of the summer, right? Only a few more months until you get here to SU. So one, what areas do you plan to focus on building your skills in preparation for SU? What resources, or two, what resources can you access to support you in building these skills? And then three, what are 3 things that you will do to get started? So reflect on this. We did talk about metacognition. We did talk about reflection, really wanting to set the intention as you make your way to your first year in college this September. So yeah.
Well, thank you all for taking the time to watch this. This is how you can get in contact with us to learn more about study strategies, tutoring, study groups. If you have any questions, if you want to talk to me or Jada about what it's like to be an alum, our emails are on here. So feel free to like pause this, screenshot it, whatever works for you. But we have our website, LAP's general email. We have a virtual front desk, and then we have all of our staff emails. And we also have disability services email at the bottom there as well, because we work a lot with them and they're really great partners, and they will be able to help you out with any accommodations you need in the classroom or outside of that. And thank you all for taking the time to learn with us. We're excited to see you this fall. We hope to see you and get to meet you. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to either of us and send us an email. Otherwise, we're excited to meet you and see you on campus.
Yes. Thank you so much, y'all, for your time. We hope you take really good, great care of yourselves as you, relish this summer. Have fun. Take care. Be healthy. Okay. Bye-bye.